Hello and welcome to R&R's Ask the Expert. I'm Kayla McGowan, Editor-in-Chief, and today we're diving into remote monitoring and how it can save your business time and money. Today, I have two very special guests who are passionate about innovation and process improvement, providing actionable strategies in insurance claims restoration technology, sales leadership, and customer success. If you haven't guessed it, it's the guys from Clean Claims. And the first one is Paul Silliman. He is a seasoned leader in sales and customer success. He specializes in streamlining operations, improving workforce efficiency, and enhancing customer experience. He also has a diverse background, including roles at Know How, Royal Pulse, Contractor Connection, and many more. He is also a non-voting member of the IICRC S500 consensus body, and he loves to contribute to industry standards. And he is the head of sales and customer success at Clean Claims. And I could go on and on about him, of course, but also we have Cory Burt. He has a unique background that spans in sales and operations in the automotive and restoration industry. He has over 10 years of experience, and he is the head of operations for Clean Claims. Welcome, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you for joining me. We've kind of run into each other at events, and I think I might see Cory here pretty soon,
Yep.
so get to meet him in the flesh. So I'm excited about that. Um, I did give a good background about you guys, but is there anything that I missed? I mean, I know you guys have extensive background, but is there anything else that you guys would like to share?
Paul, go ahead. I'm sure you have other things to share. I mean,
Oh, we
Paul,
could talk for a long time on that one, but no, it's just, started in the industry as a technician, moved into estimating, project managing, spent time on the insurance side, then came back to the contracting side before getting into the technology side. But really, we're your boots on the ground. We're out in the field. We're on jobs with customers. We're really trying to help bring technology forward for our clients, but also just the industry as a whole.
and I, my passion has always been in all of the different careers that I've had along the way is making businesses better, right? And creating efficiencies where we can. And, that's a big topic of today is how can I scale my business? How can we be better? And we at Clean Claims, that is what we do. We make companies better and more efficient, right? And so that's been super exciting for Paul and I to see that come to fruition as we work with different companies.
Yeah, I would definitely say efficiency, time saving, cost savings is definitely at the forefront of all businesses inside or outside of the industry, to be quite honest, with costs being high and just being busy, honestly. We just don't have a lot of time to spare. So, with that being said, what are some of the biggest challenges that restoration professionals are seeing when they're trying to track job progress and documentation? I know it's a topic that we all love to discuss and it could be very long-winded, but what are like maybe the three top challenges that we're seeing?
So I'll take this one and go, and we'll back out a little bit on this one. So in some of the recent surveys we've seen in the industry, hiring and retaining employees is a huge issue. Time to get paid is a huge issue. Well, if you look at those two, they're very intertwined. So not only are we bringing in a lot of people who frankly have never worked on the tools or have never even heard of the restoration industry before they got into it, but then now they're learning, okay, how do I dry a house? What's my customer service side of it? But also the way the industry is right now, what are the four different softwares I have to use that I aren't maybe as easy to use as others? Or where do I put this? How do I sign these documents? It's a little bit of a crazy ecosystem right now. And then on the flip side of that, we're seeing it's taking anywhere between 30 and 90 days to get paid on claims, or you're constantly going back and forth with adjusters saying, I'm missing documentation, I don't have readings. Hey, you sent me over two moisture points and one photo on this, but yet you say it took 5 days to dry. How do we solve that problem? And really, that's our founder Lane when he built this was a restorer that was tired of dealing with these problems, which is the genesis behind Clean Claims. And then I spent time not only on the contracting side, but on the adjusting side to where when you're an adjuster and you have anywhere from 80 to 120 claims you're trying to get through, and I have had claims where I've had people send me two photos and an invoice saying you owe me $40,000 with no documentation behind it. Obviously, I can't pay that claim. So we're looking to try and see how do we make it simple in one platform to be able to document those photos because as we know, we get paid on what we can document, not the job we did. So how do we document that? But also, how do we give live data that shows exactly what we did on the job? And that's where not only our software, but our remote monitoring is coming in to be able to show exactly what happened on the job. If it took 5 to 7 days to dry this job, and here's our psychrometric readings, here's our documentation and photos, you can't really argue data versus opinion. So let's give all the data you need to help you get paid.
And I would just add one thing to that. As we're scaling our companies, right? Because that's a big hot topic as well, is how can we scale our companies and get bigger, right? That's what it's all about. How can we do that? And with our software, we pride ourselves on that process enforcement, right? To be able to bring a technician in that's been doing it for 30 years, or they've been doing it for 30 minutes, right? And then we're able to plug them in and be like, hey, this is how you walk through a job. So it's getting documented the same every single time. So we hone in on that process enforcement for your employees to then be able to train quicker, get the right documentation, and not have those meetings that we've all had of where's your photos, where's your documentation, where's your notes, where's all this stuff that I needed. And now not only did we not get it when I was out there, now I have to go back out there on the job. And how much time and resources are we wasting going back out to jobs that we don't need to?
Yeah, that's you guys touched on some great topics there. Like just to kind of wrap it on, there's a lot of variables, I think, is what it really comes down to. And in order to be successful, that's where you guys come in. You're here to help people understand the process from A to Z, essentially. And I think you said it really well, Cory, whether it's somebody coming in that's been in the industry for 30 years or somebody that's been 30 minutes, essentially the process should be the same for everybody. And I think that's where there's a lot of hiccups, and not just in our industry and industries across all industries, to be honest. I mean, you see it, when you go to the doctor, it's different. You don't get the same treatment or the process isn't the same. And so, with you guys implementing all of this, I think it just makes a huge difference for our industry as a whole. You guys touched on remote monitoring a little bit in there. So, how does Clean Claims use remote monitoring? Sorry, I'm having word problems today. How does Clean Claims use remote monitoring to help our professionals save time and money?
Sure. I'll take the first part and then I'll let Paul fill in because he's the professional restorer here. But we we use the remote monitoring. So obviously, remote monitoring is not replacing the technician, right? Let's be clear that we're not sending robots out there. People still have to set it up on day one, right? So we get to the job, we analyze what needs to happen, we set up our remote monitoring, which we can talk a little bit more about. We have our own proprietary Wi-Fi hub. So we're bringing the Wi-Fi to the customer's house, hooking our sensors up to it, and then letting them do their thing while we're not there, right? So we are doing that. We're not taking away a technician's role. We're sending them out there, having them set everything up on day one. Where we start saving money is on day 2, 3, and 4, right? Because now we are able to see those readings from our office or from wherever we are and be able to make more educated decisions on where to allocate our resources. And in this case, our resources are our employees, right? Where to send them. Are we going to send them out like, oh, this is drying quicker than we thought. Maybe we do need to send them out. Or, hey, it's not drying right now. It's in the process. We can see it. We don't need to go out there. So now we can send our employees, our resources to another loss and be able to scale our company without bringing on more employees just to do that, right? So we're not taking away the technician. We're just allocating our resources in a smarter way, right? More educated. And so I think that's where a big value comes. And then we can talk about, and Paul will get into this, he's been in the industry a long time. He brought up employee morale, right? And we're always trying to work on employee morale. What happens on a weekend job that we all have right now? We can all think of a job that we have going over a weekend, right? Number one is we have to send our employees out on a weekend. There's not very many employees that love working on weekends, right? Not a lot of them. Also, we're bugging the homeowners who don't want us in their house on the weekend, right? They're off at baseball games, soccer games, family parties, wherever they are. They don't want to be bothered on the weekends. Setting up our remote monitoring just for that is unbelievable because we're getting the readings that we need over a weekend. We're not tapping into our employee resource, and we're not tapping the customer at that point, right? And so those are just two instances where our remote monitoring is awesome. And we haven't even got into the cost savings of fuel, car maintenance, right? Going out to the job, all of that time saving as well. And then still being able to provide the data. So I don't know where I missed, Paul, that you could add in on that, but
No, I think you hit a lot of good points on there because I've had numerous times where, depending on when an on call schedule starts, if it starts on a Monday, by the time you get to Saturday, you've already worked a full week. Heaven forbid you get after hour losses. So you might be at 50 hours already going into the weekend. And now I have to spend the first day of my Saturday driving around just to go take 15 minutes at a job site to go get some moisture readings where this can be doing it for you. But the other aspect to it is you're thinking in yourself, I don't know, remote monitoring, it's all new, things of that nature. You just have to understand as we're progressing as an industry with technology, AI is a big topic, unless Elon decides to get in restoration, we're not going to have any robots anytime soon. But, how do we help use this to help drive not only value, morale, but communication with our homeowner? You can now live. We have what's called our like a 24-hour report or a snapshot report within the system. I can every morning simply have that automated to where you can send out a customizable report showing, hey, this is where we're at. This is what, here's our dry standard. This is where we're at. Here's our grains. Here's how everything's progressing. You can take in 30 seconds a quick text to a homeowner, and now you're solving a communication problem, which has always been a big issue in this industry. Now you're keeping the homeowners update and you're sending them a tailored white labeled report showing what's going to happen. So now the homeowner's not bugging you at 8 p.m. at night saying, when are we getting this thing out of the house? But even other savings in the sense of, is my equipment running properly? You can put our thermal hygrometer on the exit of a DHU. Is it stuck in defrost mode all night? Like, do I know things are running properly? But also, I mean, a lot of people are nervous about it because it is new technology. Let's just go back 10 years when I started in the industry and I got my IICRC certifications. These wheels were the most technological thing to where I can calculate my relative humidity and grains. This was a hot topic because when I got my certifications, you still had to write them out on graphs. Well, now we have apps on our phones. Now we have all this stuff. Why are we spending physical time? Because call it what you want. If we have a complete house flood and we get our equipment up, we do the demo we need to do, and we have all of our drying equipment set, it's not going to be dry on day two. Why am I going to send one or two technicians out to a job to monitor where now maybe we're reducing the load that they're working, or they can be on call for new emergencies, or maybe we do take that time and do that customer service training or something in our office. So how do we help free up time, but also just reduce the burden on your employees?
I was gonna say you guys touched on some really key pieces of remote monitoring. There's costs and time savings up front, but it's also on the backside too. The things that may seem like business expenses, like you touched on, Cory, I think mileage. Also, this is instant, right? If something goes wrong with your equipment, you can see that, right? I think that's also another thing when we're spending time putting our resources everywhere, and we're not even talking about a large loss, right? We're talking about day to day, taking a project at a time. Your resources are already spread thin. And then to put a large loss on top of that, wouldn't it be so convenient and peace of mind to know, hey, all of my stuff is being monitoring. I can actually pull my guys and gals out of the field and we can all be hands on deck on this large loss, right? And then set up the same equipment there, essentially, because this is not one size fits this size of a project and so on and so forth. forth. You guys can handle it all. And I think that's the other thing. Time, money, efficiency for your staff, right? You can efficiently have them work on other things rather than travel time. Because let's face it, if you're in a big city, 5 miles can take you 30, 40 minutes to get to that site. And I think that's the other thing is, you know, what is in place. Yes, it's not replacing our techs. It's actually making them more efficient. If we're being quite honest, at any time they can stop and look at what's going on. Not to mention, if they're on vacation, somebody else can step in and see it and not have to feel like they have to go out and assess, right? I think that's also another piece of the pie too, projects moving other hands and you can see all of the data from start to finish, right?
Yep.
And that's the beautiful part with our, with our system. It's all live data that's streaming into our software. Not to say I recommend this, but you could be monitoring while you're on vacation. Like you can literally be on a boat out there fishing and can pull up and see exactly what your psychrometric charts are. Like it allows you to be able to see that. And we have a handful of clients that not only do they use it for the customers and, sending those documentations to the carriers, they use it first thing in the morning. Their mitigation manager hops in, takes a look at all the readings before he allocates where the resources go for the day. So now I can actually see, I don't need to go see Miss Smith today. Everything's going good. Let me send her a quick text. That project's done and handled now. So it's just allowing to take things off people's plates, but also allowing you to grow your business and allocate resources without having to go, buy $10,000 new equipment or say I need to add a new department. How do we, shrink down and actually get more profit out of what's already in front of us?
And Kayla, let me bring up a point that will kind of like put this all in perspective, right? So in conversations that we've had with insurance carriers, they're getting about 30% of the data the documentation that they need from, restorers to the insurance company, about 30%, right? We're in talks with we've been sending a lot of our data to insurance companies now, and they told us that we were giving them too much data. Too much data. So we went from giving 30% as an industry to now the insurance carriers are like, whoa, 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 that's way too much data. We actually had to back off how much data we were sending them. So how cool is that we had an insurance carrier tell us, hey, whoa, that's way too much info for me, where they've been begging for data, right? And now we're giving them too much. And we literally had to just back it off just barely to give them 1 or 2 readings a day rather than the list that we had that was a mile long.
That's so key too, I think, because we're on the restoring end too. On both ends, actually, there is frustration, right? Because if we're giving only 30% of what they need, that's super frustrating because then that's a lot of back and forth, right? And let's be real here, we're all working on a ton of projects. And granted, you may have somebody that has a steel trap up there that can remember, oh, yep, we're missing a photo for this or what have you. But let's talk about the time that it would take for somebody to say, oh, shoot, I didn't get a picture of that. Or, oh, I don't have documentation for that. We're losing time and money, right? But now that we know the sweet spot as far as like, hey, we gave you too much. Actually, that's a really good problem to have is too much data. Let's scale back a little bit. And it just provides a roadmap for where we need to go and how we need to hand things over to the other part of the process. And let's be real, we all have to collaborate at the end of the day. So feedback from both sides and even the customer are going to make our jobs that much more easier, but also a little bit more fun, right? I know
Yep.
nobody likes to sit down and send the file off because it's antagonizing, right? It's so antagonizing. But now we're able to have people like yourself who are communicating directly with the carrier to find out where are these gaps? How do we fill these gaps? And that will also build a collaborative effort in the long run. It's going to take time and that's okay. But I think we're filling in those gaps with, like I said, the help of you guys, to be completely honest, because we don't know what we don't know. I know that's a saying that's passed around quite a bit, but it's very true. Um, so with that being said, how did you guys get to that point, right? Like 30%, I mean, that 70% is a lot. You know what I mean? That's a lot to kind of not guess, but try and figure out where did we go wrong with that 70%?
Well, the answer is you don't guess, you go right to the source, right? So to Paul's point, we were built by a restorer, right? So Lane, our founder, is a restorer at heart. So all of our conversations have been with restorers. How can we make it easy for your technicians? How can we make it easy for them? Now we have to go on the flip side and say, hey, carriers, what are you missing? Right? And that's our job now, is to go to the carriers and say, what data are you missing? And then we'll build that into clean claims to say, hey, this is what they're missing, so this is what we got to get, right? So there's no, you can't, you can't tell your employee, oh, you don't need to get that, you don't need it. It's, we have to get all of these things, because at the end of the day, we have to go back to, we want to get paid faster. That's what we want, right? Cash flow is an issue. We need to get paid faster so that we can reinvest in our businesses and grow. But if we are waiting 3 months, 6 months, some of these claims are having birthdays now, Kayla. We're talking about, like, we have customers that have claims that are over a year old. If you have claims that are over a year old, how are you supposed to grow your company? Right? And so it's really on our side now to fill in that gap to where we can give them everything they need, prove that to them, and then build it out inside of Clean Claims. And that's what we're doing right now.
I was definitely going to say you touched on a really great point, right? You've built that in. And so this goes back to the 30-year veteran, 30-minute technician. It's all going to be the same no matter who touches it. And we're not leaving any open gaps as far as what needs to be done. And I think that's extremely important too, right? Because workforce is a really big problem. And so if you're able to have something like Clean Claims that does reassure that you're doing things properly, then it's a game changer. You're able to show your team that you're invested in their success just as much as they're invested in your business's success. Let's be honest, when a business thrives, the employees thrive and vice versa. And so, I think that's really big part of what you guys are doing too. You've taken the time, you've done the legwork to make sure, like, hey, what were we missing? Going to the carrier and saying, please tell us what we're missing. And that way you're setting up anybody that comes through your door up for success. Um, and speaking of Clean Claims, and we're talking about efficiency and reduce costs, is there one or two things that stick out as far as like a big project or like just something that left like a lasting imprint on you, that you guys have seen in your time while you've been there?
Paul, why don't you go ahead? There's several examples, and I can fill in as well. But
Yeah, I'd say probably the biggest one that stuck out with us is we had a client that had a large loss. It was a Walmart. They were able to use our remote monitoring and then our software, which, just to your point about making it simple, Clean Claims is designed at a fifth grade level. Like, we are designing this as restorers with some of the best development guys ever, but we keep the restorers at mind because we don't want you to have a master's degree to be able to figure out how to add photos into the system. It just simply walks you through the process. And we had a client that it took, I can't remember the exact days, but it was like 15 days to dry out this large structure. With our remote monitoring, with our ability to share the documents and keep people in the loop, they were able to get paid out, I think it was $1.5 million in 5 days. Like, they were able to do that and keep people in the loop, which on large commercial jobs, we're talking year to year and a half to get paid on some of these. But just being able to have that full transparency and give that data, give all the information they need, they were able to keep the building owner in the loop, the insurance carrier in the loop, everybody in the loop at the same time, and be able to document it. It just made it simple. Because at the end of the day, adjusters want to pay claims. I know this is going to be controversial. They want to pay claims. I wanted to pay claims. If I got a file that was able to actually, because most people don't realize, most adjusters, they have authority limits. So for me, I had a $50,000 authority limit. If you gave me everything I needed for me to send this to my boss to say, okay, this was good, pay the claim, I paid it. But if we're sending in only a couple of photos, or we're claiming there's contents damage, but there's no photos of any of the contents, or they're saying, oh, this room got affected, but yet there's no moisture readings, there's nothing showing anything to it, I can't pay for that. So how do we just make it simple to where they can now see everything that you did, so that it's not an estimate? Here's my invoice. Here's all the documentation behind it. Great. Let me pay this claim and move on. So seeing that from some of our clients has been some of the best. And yeah, Corey, you can dive into some of the other ones you've seen.
Yeah, I think that another one that just sticks out in my mind is that we have to remember that some of these jobs are kind of complicated, right? And not every job is the same. We had a customer on a loss in a hospital, right? And there were three pharmacies inside of this hospital. And they couldn't let the temperature, the ambient temperature of the room, go below a certain temperature or above a certain temperature. Without remote monitoring, there was no way to tell that, right? You could not, unless you had someone there all the time taking readings all the time, right? And so we were able to create a report for these customers that was just like, hey, it never got above this temperature, it never got below this temperature. So they didn't, saving the hospital all kinds of money because they didn't have to throw away those meds, right? They were able to salvage those. So there's just so many different types of jobs out there, right? We don't know what we're going to run into next. We're talking about Joe Schmo at his house, but we haven't talked about like these large corporations that we can save them all kinds of money, right? And with school districts or any of these people that are our customers, right? And we can show them all the data. And I don't even think Paul and I can even wrap our minds around what's coming next, right? We're just
Mm-hmm.
relying on our customers to tell us that, but having the technology at our fingertips is the best part, right?
And even to that loss, even to Corey's loss, he's talking about with the pharmacy, because we had the remote monitoring, we have alerts set up in our system. So if something did malfunction and drop down, you're getting instant alerts so you can get someone out there quickly to assess the situation instead of, yeah, I'm going to come out the next day and then, oh crap, something happened, or now we have 12 hours of exposure. You're instantly able to see all that information so you can make live changes and, you know, put out any fires as you need.
Yeah, that's huge too. I mean, we're talking about we're in a lot of spaces, right? Corey, that was a great example, by the way, because if we think about our world of restoration, essentially, no one is left out, if I'm being quite honest, from pharmacies to libraries to Walmart. I mean, there's so many different things, and not even to mention the residential stuff. I mean, there's apartment buildings and all of that fun stuff, right? And so the beauty of remote monitoring is you can make it fit your situation, right? I think that's the other thing. You talked about alerts, you talked about keeping it between specific, temperatures. And I'm sure with those alerts, you can actually set it to where it's not necessarily below the lowest limit, but be proactive, right? Give yourself
Hmm.
5-10 degrees so you're like, hey, it's dropping, like that's concerning, you can go in and check it. Or if it's rising, and I think that's the other thing is, to your point, Corey, what we're going to do, send somebody there and have them do 8-hour shifts 24 hours a day. I mean, that is so costly, right? And I think, yes, as all things are scary when they're new or maybe questionable, we will in time adapt. I mean, Paul, with your wheel that you showed, right? We've come a long way from writing a number on paper and using some wheels to figure out some things for
That
ourselves.
was less than
So
10 years ago, too. That wasn't even that long ago.
which is crazy, right? Which is crazy to think how far technology can take us and actually advance us and help the consumer's journey be that much more enjoyable, right? It's not fun when you're going through a loss, but if you're constantly communicating, giving them updates, showing them things, you bring a sense of peace of mind for something that is very foreign to our customers.
Right.
With that being said, where do you see the future of remote monitoring going, and how is Clean Claim staying ahead?
It's funny you brought it up because I was just thinking in my head as we were talking about it, how we even got the idea for the alert system was from one of our customers, right? Out in the field using it, and they're like, hey, we need to build in alerts to tell us this and this, right? And so that's one of the things that I love most about working at Clean Claims is that we are listening to our customers and we're continuing to innovate. Because if we know, as a business owner, if you're not innovating and moving forward, you're dying and you're moving down and someone is passing you up, right? And in our space, in the software space, we have to continually be innovating and we're doing it from our customers up. we're taking the word of our customers and saying, hey, we need this, this, and this. Let's build it out, right? And if it's a good idea for you, chances are it's a good idea for the industry, right? And so we are listening to our customers and continuing to enhance. It's funny, Paul and I are on the sales and operations side, and it's like, oh, we had another 4 updates coming out this week. Oh, we have more coming out next week. It's like we're trying to just stay ahead and pump all this stuff out to our customers of what we are doing because we are moving that quickly, right? And so, where we are going to be in the future is all going to come from what we hear from our customers, what instances they are running into, and how can we fix those problems for our customers.
Yeah, that's well said. I think a way of staying ahead, honestly, is just that taking the feedback from our customers, consumers. You never know. You may get something from actually somebody going through a loss that says, "Hey, I would appreciate automation," or "I would appreciate this," or you never know. And I think that's the beauty of being in the software space, right? You guys take the feedback, and if it's not implementable right away, maybe it's something that can come a little later down the road. And so like you said, even if one person comes to you and has an idea, chances are there's about 50 more people in the same space that are like, hey, that's genius. I wish I would have thought of that, right? Um, and with that being said, you said, every week you guys could potentially have updates. And I think that's extremely important because we've seen, like we talked about at the beginning, where things have changed at different paces, right? Things change at different paces or updates happen at different times. And with Lane being a restorer himself, he knows how important it is to have those as soon as possible and as flawless as possible. So it's not just for our contractors, it's made by contractors, which makes it very unique and very special. So with that being said, any closing thoughts from you, gentlemen?
No, I think we hit on a lot of good points, but the one thing I want to highlight from it as well is, the pace of technology is moving at probably obviously the fastest rate it's ever been, but it's just moving at a new pace. We now have to have claims reports in faster. We have to have photos uploaded faster. We have to have all this stuff done faster. And, with like AI and different things coming in, it's not going to replace the human element. You're still going to have to be on site. You're still going to have to get these readings. That's where we see our remote monitoring bringing tremendous values to help expedite that and give that unfiltered data to be able to help close a file. But also, we're working on a lot of innovative things, but we're restorers. Let's be honest, I'm not a developer by any means. You don't want me developing your software, but every single thing we push out, we physically use. We go on job sites and test it, but also we keep it as simple as humanly possible. Because it's one thing to have a great software, but we all know the best software is the one people use every day. So if it's not something people enjoy using, it doesn't matter how great it is. So we always try and keep things as, clean claim simple as humanly possible, to where this is a bad example because my niece is 6 years old. Can a 6 year old go and do this, even though she's probably more advanced than I am in some of this stuff? But like, how do we make it to where someone can pick this up and just walk through and do what they need to do in it and not make it overcomplicated?
And
I mean,
and
I
I
think that's a good point. Sorry, go ahead, Cory.
no, I was just going to say something that sets us apart that I think we need to talk about as well is, we've all used softwares in our industries. Whatever that industry has been, we've been used to using softwares. I've used software my entire career, right? We also, something that we pride ourselves on at Clean Claims is being customer centric, and that customer service is there with us. We want your feedback, number one, but we also want to help you as well. So if you're running into an issue, I can't even count how many times that I've been on calls with technicians in the field, walking them through how to do it a couple of times, right? Because any new software, it takes some time to get to know it a little bit. And Paul and I are happy to hop on calls anytime with business owners, with technicians, with whoever we need to. What software company does that? There's not many of them out there that I know of. It's hard enough when you're getting on the computer to even get someone to talk to you anymore. right? Like just a person. And now you have a team of people that are ready to help you, train you, and help you on a job site. I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I would definitely say that is a really cool thing to really talk about because we all are consumers too, right? We're all consumers. And you just brought up a great example. Going online or trying to call something, it used to be you could press zero and get a human, and now you can't even do that. Everything is so automated. And to make our jobs easier and to troubleshoot efficiently and effectively, you have to have that human interaction. And so, I think that's really one thing that will never change in our industry. Hands-on, talking things through, having that opportunity to pick up and call each other. I mean, heck, I was texting Paul yesterday. I mean, I think that's the beauty of this network that we have in this space because we all thrive with that human interaction. And it's no different when it comes to software because that's frustrating. Technology is frustrating. And, for your team to be available to help, our industry professionals is huge, especially if they're in the field and something's going wrong and they need to troubleshoot. It can take 2 to 5 minutes probably on the phone where trying to figure it out, Google things, live chat could take over an hour. So that's really important for all of you listening. You get Cory and Paul and Lane and everybody in the flesh over there at Clean Claims. But I'd like to thank you guys both so much for your time and shedding light on something that's a little touchy in our industry right now of remote monitoring. So thank you again. And until next time, everybody, we will see you again. Take care.